Hello and welcome to the Ending Body Burnout Show. We are your hosts, Chris and Philly, co-founders of a multi-award-winning functional medicine practice, serving busy people with energy, mood, and gut issues.
While busyness, addictive doing, people-pleasing, and perfectionism might be the norm, it's not normal, and it's a major contributor to health issues.
Our goal with this show is to give you a holistic root cause approach to healing your body so that you don't have to continue doctor or diet hopping or popping a gazillion supplements hoping something might stick.
So get ready to heal your body, get your spark back, deeply connect with yourself, and step into the life of your dreams.
Let's dive in.
Hello, everybody. I am really excited. I know I say this all the time when we start a podcast. I just love podcasting. I love the solo episodes. I love the episodes with just Chris and I. I especially love client episodes where we have clients come and share their story and you are getting one of those dropping in your earlobes in your ear holes next week. But today I've got a really special guest coming onto our podcast. Now, she has a special place in my heart because this is actually one of my personal mentors that I have worked with that has really taught me and mentored me in healing trauma. So on the potty today, we have Judith Richards. She is the founder and creator of the Richards Trauma Process, also known as TRTP trauma. And you might have heard about us mention this modality in past episodes with clients or when we've just been talking about different ways that you can resolve trauma that gets stuck in your unconscious mind and affects your physical body. It's an amazing modality. In our Ending Body Burnout method, it is holistic and it's not just one thing that gets results. So we're working on both the physical body and lab testing and supplementing and supporting body systems so that they can start resetting and healing. But the deeper work happens in what we call the metaphysical side of healing. So that's really looking at why the body system's burnt out in the first place, and or why are the body systems not responding to physical protocols? And the answer to that lies in the baggage in the unconscious mind that is keeping the nervous system and the adrenal glands and the brain in a fight-flight response. And so one of those things that can become baggage in the unconscious mind is unprocessed trauma. And we created the Ending Body Burnout method quite a few years ago, and I felt like there was a little bit of a missing piece inside the method that really addressed deep unresolved trauma. So when I first witnessed the power of TRTP, again, it was a few years ago, I had a new client do TRTP with another practitioner while we were waiting to get lab test results back. When she came back for her next consult to go over the lab test results, at the start of the lab review consult, I'll always just gauge, how are you? How are you feeling? Are your symptoms still the same? Is there anything that's better? Anything that's changed? Anything that's worse? And she sat there and she said, all my symptoms have disappeared. My anxiety, my depression, my fatigue, my brain fog, my gut issues. And she was also off her ADHD and antidepressant medication. And my mind was blown. I knew I had to learn TRTP myself and incorporate it into our holistic approach to end body burnout to really help our clients get faster and more effective results. So now inside our method, if you join the method, which by the way opens up our signature program, 6-month healing accelerator program, only opens doors 3 times a year. And we're about to open doors in a couple of weeks. So it's super exciting time for us. Now, if you join the one-on-one private option for the Ending Body Burnout method, all of our clients in that program and in that option automatically receive TRTP. So that is just included in your package in the program. If you choose the semi-private Ending Body Burnout method program, that includes a combination of group coaching plus monthly one-on-one consults with myself. But it doesn't have enough space or time to really take someone through the TRTP process, which can only be done in a very in-depth one-on-one setting. So in saying that, if you are a keen bean and you've been watching us and you've got your name on the wait list for the Ending Body Burnout Method, and after we talk or you listen to this episode, you're like, oh, I'd really love to really clear my trauma, but I can't afford the one-on-one private, that's okay. Our semi-private clients can add on TRTP as part of their healing journey. Not all clients do. A lot of clients get great results just following our signature method without TRTP, but TRTP is a great modality in our toolbox that we pull out for certain clients who might be feeling really stuck or who need more one-on-one in-depth guidance and hand holding in a beautiful way, in a safe way, to really resolve deep-seated trauma. Anyway, so pop your name on the wait list. By the way, if you're on the wait list, we do open doors in a couple of weeks. You can get first dibs of grabbing a spot. We only have limited spaces because, as I mentioned, the private one-on-one and the semi-private options both include one-on-one support. So we have limited spaces. And you'll also have an opportunity to grab $500 worth of early bird bonuses if you join before doors open officially. And we will send out an email to our clients on the wait list, or not yet clients, possible clients on the wait list. Another thing too, before we jump into the episode, just an announcement that in a couple of weeks, we'll also be holding our live coaching experience, which is a free experience. And we're going to be helping you to rewire your brain to heal body burnout. This has come due to popular demand. A lot of people were asking for this specific coaching and training. So Chris and I have been putting together a really awesome coaching experience for you. It is free. It's a great way to experience our holistic approach for healing, to see if you vibe with our vibe. And even if you're not interested in joining the program or working with us, if you attend the free experience and you show up present and open, there are many people who have got so much transformation. Maybe it hasn't solved all their issues, but it's just helped them to the next step in their healing journey. So we're really excited about holding that. Okay. Now, officially, who is Judith Richards? So she is the creator of the Richards Trauma Process, or TRTP, born out of her journey of resolving decades of severe abuse and trauma. For many years, she suffered extreme physical and mental illness as a result of her psychological trauma and physical injuries, and she never gave up. With great courage and determination, she persisted, learning and discovering that there is a way to capture a life worth living. There is a way to the other side of trauma and its myriad symptoms. The result of this journey is the Richards Trauma Process. TRTP is fast, effective, and safe. It resolves the issues of extreme trauma and is equally as effective in dealing with lower levels of anxiety, depression, fears, and phobias, and burnout. Any issue which is trauma related. Judith now teaches TRTP to mental health professionals. Okay, let's jump into today's episode. Welcome everyone to the podcast today. I am so excited for our guest today, the wonderful Judith Richards, who is one of my awesome mentors and a trauma therapist. And we're going to dive right into trauma and especially the connection between trauma and body burnout. Thanks so much for coming onto the show, Judith.
It's a delight to be with you, Philippa.
Awesome. So we love when we have guests coming onto our podcast to just get straight into the personal stuff, because often we find that a lot of people who end up in this, whether it's holistic health or trauma, there's often your own story has become part of what you do. So are you happy to start there? Why you do what you do and your own story?
Why I do what I do. I have no choice. I am morally compelled. I've been on my deathbed a few times, and I don't want to be there again thinking, well, that was a waste of time. So why did I come into this? Because I had a ridiculous life story. So I had a life of pretty extreme trauma. I had an interesting family. Interesting is a wonderful word. There was a lot of trauma around there, which I won't go into here. We were Catholic, so some priests took a keen interest in me as a child. I went to a Catholic girls' school for high school. In my early teenage years, I was groomed and sexually abused by a nun. You don't hear a lot about the nuns, but yeah, they're into it too. And I just, by the time I was a late teenager, I just about introduced myself. Hi, I'm Judah. I attract violent lunatics. What can I say? It's a gift. So then various abusive relationships. I worked my way up through the hierarchy of violent nutters until I found myself with a doozy who was very, very violent. Lots of things happened in that decade which left my body very, very damaged. And then I spent a couple of years in and out of hospital, and the surgeons put my body back together as best they could and said I'd be in chronic ill health and chronic pain for the rest of what would probably be a very short life. So that was in 1999, and I'm still standing. And after that, I went into great physical decline and mental and emotional breakdown. And I found myself living with several personalities, living in hallucinations, living in flashbacks, completely non-functional, bankrupt, no car, disability pension, and out of my head. I lived in Mullaney. Those Australian listeners might know where that is. I lived above the shoe shop in Mullaney. I was the only person who lived above the shops. The kids in Mullaney called me MBL, Mad Beanie Lady, because I'd walk up and down the streets talking 1,000 miles an hour, saying the same thing again and again until I'd get lost, and then some kind soul would show me home. So I was pretty insane. And I found a way to restore myself to good health. And people saw me get well pretty quickly, and they brought their loved ones. I just put them through what I had done. They got well. More people came. There was an event where there was a professor of trauma. I forget what he was, but he ended up in hospital and he wasn't available to present. And someone asked me to present. I said, I don't present. They said, you do now. And so I presented that day. And at the end of that, people wanted to learn from me. I said, I don't teach. They said, well, you do now. And the rest, as they say, is history. The psychiatrist in that first group of 12 who I took through a training program where I reverse engineered what I was doing, she cleared her books in 5 weeks. She was a PTSD specialist. And the receptionists in the big medical center where she practiced sent a delegation to ask her, what are you prescribing now? Is it legal? And are we implicated by being on the premises? Because we've been seeing your patients coming for many, many years and now they're walking out well. What are you giving them? Is there going to be a drug bust? She explained she wasn't giving them drugs. And so that was in July 2014. So it's 10 years now that I've been teaching. Many, many, many hundreds, over 1,000 now of practitioners. And they're generally getting extraordinary results. People say, where's the research? It's taken us nearly 7 years to get ethics approval from Melbourne University to begin our research. The pilot study will be up for publishing around October.
Oh, it's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I've shared this story with you, but I came across TRTP. So this is the trauma therapy process that Judith is talking about. We'll dig into that in a second. But I met a practitioner, TRTP practitioner, through a business group, and she just said, if you have any clients, with PTSD or trauma, send them through. And I remember there was one client, she had an initial consult with me and we were doing some lab tests that we do in functional medicine. And while we were waiting to get test results back, she went and did TRTP. She came back and all her symptoms were gone, like anxiety, depression, female hormone issues, gut issues. She was even off ADHD medication, antidepressants. And I was just like, what is this magic? What is going on here in such a short amount of time? And now I see that with our own clients, taking them through TRTP. It's just extraordinary how fast trauma can be cleared with the process. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the gift. Sometimes people are a little bit sus in terms of, oh, will this really work? Like it sounds a little bit too, like a bit too good to be true. And with each one of those clients, I do share a story. I'm like, Judith has come from the worst of the worst. She was so traumatized that she was the bin lady. I use that phrase as well. And no training, she healed herself. And now thousands of other people do too. So it's pretty extraordinary. And yes, it can happen really fast.
Yeah. And it's sad that because, I speak to thousands of people every year, and particularly mental health professionals say, well, that's impossible. I say, isn't it sad that the bar is so low that people expect it to take years, at least months and months and months of painful work to get well. And even then, I have I've had in the past so many clients coming saying, I have complex PTSD and I've been told by, 7 psychiatrists that I'll never be well. The best I can hope for is to learn to manage my symptoms. They say, and this psychiatrist gave me your name and said, you could maybe help me manage my symptoms a little bit more effectively. So that's not what I do. So, well, I was told what you do. I said, oh, well, others would know then. They said, no, but I know I can't ever be cured. I'll always be like this. I said, so how's that belief working for you? Mm-hmm. I said, well, what do you do? I said, we just fix the bastard. As long as you throw yourself in.
Mm-hmm. So can you talk about what trauma actually is then, and why kind of the approach of talk therapy or CBT takes a really long time, if it even works at all?
It's really sad that it takes a long time if it works at all. I work with a lot of I remember the third group I taught, and I was driving to the venue because in those days we did live workshops. And I was looking at the CVs of these very learned, very educated people. Nearly all of them had at least 1 doctorate. Some had 2. And for those who don't know, my background was in music. I went to the Conservatoire of Music. I did classical piano. And then I became a stage manager for opera companies. And I had a huge crisis of confidence. And I walked into this room nearly in tears. Why are you people here? You should be teaching me. Some of you have learned from the top experts in trauma in the world. And you're here. Do you know I'm not even a psychologist? I play the piano. And I said, why are you here? And we went around the room. Why are you here? And they all said exactly the same thing. Most of them said, I've got a PhD in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. We call it crappy bloody therapy. So can you just shut up and get on with it? CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. The idea behind that is that if you can change how you think, if you can really understand what's happened. So let's look at it from every angle so you really understand it. Why do you think that person did that to you? What was going on in them that they did that to you? Let's look at it from let's talk about it and talk about it and talk about it so that you can understand it cognitively, which then will probably make you feel differently about it, which will probably change your behaviors around it. And that's fine, but the cognitive brain works only 5% of the time. And trauma is stored in the unconscious, in that part that is 95%. Do the maths. Using 5% to control the 95% doesn't add up, does it? And so it takes a long time. Most of the mental health professionals that I've taught have said they're just frustrated. Some of them have said, I lie in bed in shame. But I have some clients, I just don't know what to do. I have no idea what to do. And they keep coming back for years. And I don't know what to do. So that's most of the talk therapies. That's how they work. Look at it from every angle. And what happens then, Neuroscience 101 is neurons that fire together, wire together. So what happens is you've got the story. So you've got this neuron path, and more neurons come and join the party. And that little pathway becomes a superhighway. The more you talk about it, the worse it gets. And some professional mental health people think that, eventually the person's not being triggered when they talk about it. Yay, success. But they don't understand that the vagus nerve is just shut down. You get people just going numb. You get blunted affect. There's no expression on the face. The voice is a monotone. There's just nothing going on there. That's how it is. And they think, yep, that's a success. That's not a success. That's a shutdown. The same with exposure therapy, which is part of CBT, which is torture. You expose the person again and again to what happened. I've had soldiers come in the middle of that process. One guy, he said, you're my last stop because I'm not going back to that psychiatrist because I'm under the next train down at the end of the road. If you can't help me, I'm out of here. He didn't say it so calmly. He was quite hysterical. And then there's ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy. Well, I just accept that I'm fucked and I commit to carrying on regardless. I'm sorry, people. I do curse. The language of trauma is real and raw. So these processes deal with the conscious mind. Trauma is stored in the unconscious. TRTP deals with trauma where it is stored and in the unconscious. And we speak to the unconscious in the language of the unconscious. What's the language of the unconscious? It's the imagination. With just 2 words, just imagine. The critical facility steps aside and we are right in there in the unconscious, and the unconscious believes what we richly imagine. Lemon wedge. Try this with me, people. Imagine you've got a really drippy, really sour wedge of lemon, one of those fresh winter ones, straight off a tree. And it's so sour and there's so much juice. And my body is responding as if I really have a piece of lemon, and a lot of you will be having the same effect with your mirror neurons and your own imagination. So we use this facility in TRTP to step the client through various imagined scenarios. We say to the client, the richer you make your internal experience, the more profound will be your outcome. Really imagine richly. And with that, we turn off the distress. So what is trauma? Trauma comes from the Greek word. That word trauma comes from the Greek word, which means wounding. Trauma isn't necessarily what happened to us. As Gabor Mate explains so eloquently, Gabor Mate is one of the top trauma experts in the world, and if you watch him, you will see his blunted affect. Trauma is the wound. It's our internal experience of what happened to us. And like with any wound, we can have a wound on our shoulder and it will scar over. And that skin will be thick. It will have no nerve endings. So with trauma, we often get that blunting, that blunted affect, the disconnection from self. Disconnection is key in trauma. Disconnection from self, disconnection from others. There's an isolation. Trauma is not so much what happens to us, but being alone in that distress. There might be lots of other people there, in the summer of bushfires. There are other people there. But our internal experience is one of being very isolated, very alone. And that scarring happens over time, and we get inflexibility. We're stuck in that trauma. We get stuck at that time. What actually happens is that event doesn't get stored in long-term memory and the door shut and, oh, well, let's get on with what else is on today. It gets stuck in the unconscious like a videotape loop, like a trauma loop, if you like. It's happening now, it's happening now, it's happening now. And with the wound, like, okay, here's a non-wounded shoulder. You can give me a good whack. You can give me a nice friendly punch on the shoulder. But you touch this one, it's sore. It's scarred over, but it hasn't properly healed. And so what happens is we touch it and we pull away, we react, we call it being triggered. What's actually happening is I am responding not to what's happening now, but I'm responding as if that is happening now. So we respond, we overreact, because we're not just talking about what's happening here, but that event when I was 3 and when I was 9 and when I was 17, when I was 22. And people say, oh, but you're just being so sensitive. You know, it was 12 years ago. Get over it. Well, I know it was 12 years ago. I know that here. But in my body, in my being, it's happening now. And so I'm overreactive. I pull away from the pain because that wound is still there. And I'm responding not to now, but to then. So what do we have to do? We have to turn off then. Turn it off, turn it off, turn it off. Put it all in the warehouse of long-term memory. Shut the door. Go, yep, it's over. And I'm safe now. So there we are. Long explanation.
No, it's an awesome explanation. I think until I experienced it myself, it's hard to understand that you can actually heal things from the past and it doesn't even have to be part of the scar anymore. Like it's almost like it happened. It's in the long-term memory, the hippocampus, but like it literally just happened and there's no charge around it anymore in your mind or in your body. A big one for me, so I'd already done a lot of work, but when I first became a practitioner in TRTP, we go through the process as a client. So I had some great mentors who took me through. And I've shared this with you before, Judith, but for the listeners, I remember some significant money blocks like shifted in the moment. My brain, like I'd done enough work that I knew that I was triggered and then I could reframe and then I could self-regulate. And I thought that that was kind of as good as it got. But after doing TRTP, even the very first session, and there's 3 parts in TRTP, like my brain, the thoughts were completely different. It was just like, oh, money's just money. It's just energy. It's just currency. It's got my back. It's my friend. It's good. As opposed to, it's a scary monster. It was just extraordinary that like literally in the space of less than an hour, the unconscious baggage had removed so that my thoughts were completely different. So cool.
It's pretty cool.
It's so cool. And I've seen that countless times. Like a lot of people we work with have health anxiety as part of their combination of things that are going on. It's very common when someone's had a lot of health issues, then the health issue becomes the trauma. And then health anxiety becomes a very big part of the cycle of keeping their body stuck in fight flight. But I'm thinking of a few clients where it's like, literally, I don't Dr. Google anymore. Like that was my daily pattern of I've got a sensation. What's the worst thing that's happening? Why am I sick? That thought pattern and that compulsion to want to do that, gone, completely gone. They didn't even have to try to force it to stop happening.
Yep.
So cool.
And that's the thing. You don't have to manage it.
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's no longer something to manage.
Yeah. That's so cool. Can we talk about big T versus little T trauma? Because maybe, like, I'm thinking that some people listening might be thinking, oh, but I wasn't sexually abused, or I didn't have domestic violence, or I wasn't in a war. What are your thoughts around that in terms of, can TRTP still help people who might not have had significant trauma happen to them or for them?
Yeah, I was talking to a young woman yesterday, actually, daughter of a friend. And we got a coffee and went and sat in the park. And she said, but nothing's happened to me. Nothing, I had a loving family and nothing happened. And she has high anxiety and OCD and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't have to be what happened to us. I think I don't have trauma. But I had an older sibling who was disabled. And I knew that her needs came first. I had no problem with that. I love her. I was fine that I came second and I was overlooked and it didn't matter. My needs didn't matter. I understood that, of course. I understood that mum and dad were always busy with her and her needs and they needed their time out as well. And, it's not so much what happens to her. It can be just as much what didn't happen. What needs did we as a tiny person have that weren't met, that were overlooked, put aside? Were we seen as a burden? Were we heard? Were we seen? Were we loved and cuddled when we were in pain and distress? Was it okay when we were scared at night to go into mum and dad? Was it okay for us to vent our frustration, to get angry, to get sad? What were the rules in the family, the cultural dynamics? You're not allowed to be anything but positive. There are some of those families. Let's be super positive. Oh, mum, I think it might rain. Don't be negative. Well, I'm just making an observation. No, that's negative. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little, but there are families where they're the super happy, super positive people. And the cultural training in some families of it's noble to put your own needs last. I had that, and I was a Catholic. Good dose of guilt goes with that as well. You're being so selfish to put you don't matter. You must serve others with all that you are. Don't ever put yourself first. And when I was listening to, now who was it the other day on a podcast talking about this very thing? There was a 20-year study done of about 10,000 women on who got cancer and who didn't. And it's really interesting that the women who got cancer, generally breast cancer, may I say, their obituaries generally read the same. She put everyone's needs before her own. She was available day or night. She never had a bad word to say about anything, about anyone. She never put herself first. She never complained. She never got cross. No one ever in all her life saw her get cross. What a saint. There she is, dead in the ground. There's a big correlation between people, not just women, because you can read the men's obituaries that are the same as this guy did. Must find that podcast. I think it was Gabor, once again, Gabor Mate. It's not honourable to forego self-care. It's not honourable to not get angry. It's healthy to get angry. It's healthy to know what we need. You know, and in burnout, which is your specialty area, Philippa, if we don't say no strongly, no more, no, our body will say it for us.
Yep. See it all the time. A lot of rescuing, people pleasing patterns connected to burnout and trauma. So, like, essentially, I feel like what you're saying is every human being has trauma and will benefit from dislodging it from their system.
Yeah. And if we take away the word trauma and say distress, because people think wars, refugees, torture, it can be, you know, when I was a kid, I had to be not seen, not heard. Just, you're a nuisance, just run away. It can be those, and it doesn't have to be big things. It can be little everyday traumas. The teacher who used to humiliate you in front of the classroom in grade 1, the bullies in the playground. It doesn't have to be big. And it's really worth asking ourselves and having a few moments by ourselves with a nice cup of tea, because we know a cup of tea fixes everything. And just say, what am I not saying no to in my life? What should I be saying no to? Whether that's continuing to go to family events, which I just find so distressing, or whatever it is. What is it that I'm not saying no to?
Yeah.
And then what is it I should be saying yes to? It's a great place to start for anyone listening.
Yeah, it's a great place to start. And also, I think, be curious around the emotion sensations that come up when you ponder that. Because if there's unconscious baggage, then that will feel really unsafe when it's like, oh, I do feel like I want to say no to my family, but what's happening in my body right now?
And listen to the words. Should is a dead giveaway.
Yeah.
I should be doing that.
Yeah.
Why? Is it true? Is it true is a wonderful question. I should be doing that. Is it true? Why?
So good. Imagination. So you mentioned imagination before, language of the unconscious mind, and it's also a big part of clearing trauma in the TRTP process.
Yep, absolutely.
Can you share how that can apply to the physical body as well? So if someone is struggling with physical symptoms, there might be even scans, blood tests, lab tests that are actually showing that there's a physical issue.
Yeah.
How can we harness the power of the imagination for healing? We're both smiling because it's like, yes, when people have this knowledge, all power to you. And are you happy to share? Because I know that you've had some extraordinary personal experiences around physical healing.
And there'll be people watching this who are having a really hard time. And my heart goes out to you. It's exhausting, isn't it? It's hard. And you have a superpower that perhaps you weren't even aware that you have. We all have this superpower called the imagination. And just as with the lemon, we can use that superpower. We have the greatest pharmaceutical engine in the universe here in our brain. For every thought, we release chemicals, different types of chemicals. Won't go into the physiology lesson about that, but let's just focus on imagination. The body and the unconscious believes what we richly imagine. And I'll say it again because it's really important. The body and the unconscious absolutely believes what we ritually imagine. So, for example, a while back, I was diagnosed with hydrocephalus or hydrocephalus, tomato, however you want to say it, due to a number of traumatic brain injuries. So what is this thing? Hydro? That means something about water, doesn't it? In the spinal column, we have fluid, spinal fluid. There's a very slow pump that pumps that spinal fluid up the spine and around the brain. It washes the brain, bathes the brain, and comes out again. It's this constant, very slow pump. In hydrocephalus, what happens is the fluid goes in, but it doesn't come out. Oh dear, there's a bit of a problem there because there's more and more fluid in the brain. In a baby's brain, the baby's head just gets bigger and bigger because the plates aren't fused. And then the baby generally dies. In an adult's head, the plates are fused, so the pressure just builds up and up, so we have seizures, and then we die. So I was having seizures. And went to the neurologist, and the neurologist, of course, wanted to drill holes and drain the fluid, and I did some research and found that the main symptom of that is early dementia and early death. The death I don't mind. I've done 3 times, and I'm just telling you, it's a wonderful experience. We've all got something wonderful to look forward to. But it's just the early dementia I wasn't keen on. I came home and looked at myself in the mirror and said, what are you thinking? Haven't we had enough? We're not doing this dementia thing. You've got a week to fix this. I'm not having it. And every morning I would get, in those days, there was film of the scan, and I'd get it and I'd see all the black, which was the fluid in the brain. And I would imagine it for about 10 minutes every morning. I would imagine it draining out. And then I would say to the unconscious and my body, I have work to do. There are people depending on me. I can't sit here all day, but you can continue to do this. We have 7 days, 6 days, 5 days. And at night, I would say to the unconscious, the body and I are going to sleep now, but you never sleep. Just keep draining this fluid, put it back how it should be, that pump going brilliantly, fluid going in, fluid coming out of the brain. Keep doing that while we sleep. We have 4 days, 3 days, 2 days. Then I went and got another scan after a week, went back to the neurologist. He said, where'd you get the scan done? And I told him, and he was on the phone straight away saying, my patient has hydrocephalus. The scan I have is of someone who doesn't have that. So there's been a mix-up. Can you please find the right scan for me? Thank you very much. Bang. And I looked over his shoulder at his screen. It had my name, and I picked up my bag. I said, thank you very much. He said, where are you going? I said, I'm going home. He said, no, you're not. You're booked for surgery in the morning. I said, see that? That's my name. That's my brain. I'm done. Bye. He said, but that's impossible. You can't do that. I said, well. So our body and our unconscious believes what we ritually imagine. Mm-hmm. I also had kidney problems for most of my life up until recent years because I was born with one kidney that was 2/3 bigger than the other. And so I'd get kidney infections because it wouldn't drain properly. And I started using my imagination to imagine that kidney shrunk down to the right size and working perfectly. And I would have an ultrasound about every 12 months to see the state of this terrible kidney and whether they were going to take it out this time, because they were always wanting to take it out and I wouldn't let them. Mm. I was very, very attached to my kidney. And imagine my joy when the ultrasound guy said, oh, roll over, love. He's got the wrong one. Nothing wrong with this kid. It must be the other one. I went, yes. And then he brought them both up on the screen and said, no, there's nothing wrong with these kidneys. He must have got you mixed up with another patient. I'll give him a ring. So, yeah, our body and our unconscious believes what we ritually imagine.
That's so cool.
And we can use that facility to help our body, because we're actually, if you read any quantum physics, we're just energy. Mm. And our intention it's been proven with quantum physics now, quantum mechanics, that our intention impacts matter, impacts that energy.
Mm.
And we're actually much more powerful than we ever imagined. So if you're not well, using your imagination can be of big benefit.
Mm. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Where, like a couple of things around that. So richly imagining. I imagine too, because some people, like again, sometimes I share your story and they're like, I do. Like every day I visualize my body healing, but it hasn't worked. So I feel like there's some other components in that. Did you, like from a belief point of view, were you just completely like, this is going to work? I can heal myself.
Okay, there are a couple of keys here. A lot of people will be familiar with the movie The Secret. That was based on the book by Wallace D. Wattles, written in 1909. I don't know how he knew about quantum physics then. But the basis of the book was that, and how to imagine things into being. And there's been a lot of courses and everything on the law of attraction. There's lots of courses on manifestation. And there's a couple of things that are left out of those. So, earlier I mentioned that the conscious mind works 5% of the time. The unconscious is going 95% of the time. And we can consciously, with our 5% of our mind, go, yeah, I'm going to do whatever is required to be well, whether that's physically or mentally, whatever way. I'm going to really work at this, going to focus, do whatever is required. Well, that's great. Go you, high five. But if the unconscious, that 95%, goes, nah, you're dreaming. And for whatever reason, and there are lots of good reasons why the unconscious would say, no, we're not going to do this wellness thing. It may be because if you're well, you'll be out in the world. It's not safe out there. So I'm going to keep you sick in bed or with agoraphobia or whatever. I'm going to make sure that you have panic attacks when you go to drive the car so you can't go anywhere. I'm going to keep you safe. It can be something like that. It can be something else completely different, some other benefit. But if I'm well, I might have to get a job. Not keen on that idea. There's lots of reasons. Not saying that everyone who's sick is a malingerer. Not at all. I certainly wasn't. But the key here is if the unconscious is disagreeing with the conscious mind about being well, no. There's no way we'll be well. There's nothing we can do consciously. It doesn't matter what surgeries we have, what pharmaceuticals we have, how many vitamins we have, how much good, healthy, organic food we eat, we will not be well unless the unconscious and the conscious mind are in agreement and in sync. That's why we sabotage ourselves. We don't wake up one day and go, yep, I'm going to sabotage my health. It's a good day for it. We don't do that. Yep, it's a great day for sabotaging my relationship. I think this is the week I should sabotage my career. We don't do that. We're not stupid. But we have to get that conscious mind, that 5%, having the unconscious, that 95% in agreement with the outcome that we want. Otherwise, it's just never going to happen. Doesn't matter what we do. So that's the first thing. So you have to make sure your unconscious is on board of, yes, it's safe to be well. Yes, it's time to be well, and have the whole lot going, yay, let's do this. That's the first thing. The next thing is to go into the future in your imagination and live being well. So when I was mad, I used to imagine, and I couldn't walk either for a lot of the time. I had lots of physical injuries and lots of things going on. But I would imagine myself running along the beach. And I wouldn't just see her over there running on the beach. I would run on the beach. I would feel the firm, wet sand under my feet. I would feel the little waves touch my feet as I splashed through. I'd feel the splashes. I would smell the ocean. I would live it. So that's the second key. To go into the future and live it. Don't just visualize it, live it, taste it, smell it, feel it, be it. So as well as looking at those scans and imagining that fluid draining from my brain, I would imagine myself symptom-free, and I always go back to running on the beach. The beach is it's my happy place. And I would experience that living healthy.
Do you think, like, your body responded really quickly to the physical imagination of healing your body? I'm just curious. I wonder if it happened so fast for you because you'd already cleared trauma as well. So the body was out of fight or flight, and you've had so much evidence. It's like, oh my gosh, if I can heal that, I can heal that.
Yeah. And when your body is in that state of rest and restore, and not in fight and flight and freeze and shut down, it's a very different body. It's much more receptive. So and so when you've turned off those trauma loops, those videotape loops in the unconscious, so that the body isn't responding as if that and that and that are happening. So I'm about to die. I'm being attacked here. This is happening and that is happening. I don't have time to worry about this little issue of fluid in my brain because I'm going to be killed in a minute. It's not going to do it. So I have to turn all that off. And then the body is in the most receptive place.
This has been so good. I know that everyone's just like, mine. I bet you right now everyone's like, lipo moments. What the heck? I can heal myself. I've got one more question. We were talking about beliefs before. So what's the connection between unconscious core beliefs and resolving trauma? Why is it so important?
Okay. Well, the first one is if you want to create any change, whether it's about wellness or success in a career or whatever it is, being able to shoot a goal in basketball. The unconscious and the conscious mind have to be in agreement. So that's the first thing. They have to agree that, yep, that's a great idea. Let's do that. And it's safe for me to do that. I mean, you see, okay, let's talk about football. All right, we're Australians. It's a big topic in a lot of places. I was doing a workshop a little while ago, and in the second row was a very famous footballer. And I was talking about this and watching as his leg started doing the shakes. Because if we've had some success and some things have happened because of it that haven't been so good, the unconscious can take on the idea it's not safe to be successful. It's not safe to stand out, to be outstanding. You're going to get shut down. And so what can happen is the unconscious, that 95% that runs every chemical reaction, every electrical response in the body, it runs the body, this is important. The unconscious can go, no, it's not safe for you to have any more success. I'm getting you out of here. And that sportsman can then have a series of injuries that eventually take him out of the sport. He came up to me, this gentleman, afterwards with tears in his eyes. He said, that's what happened to me. Is that what it was? I said, yeah. Did you want to change that? He said, do I? So we all, I took people through an exercise to change those unconscious core beliefs. The other thing is why it's so important for this is you can turn off those videotape loops. Like for myself, for example, let's take me as the guinea pig because I know me best. Mm-hmm. We could turn off all the distressing events that happened in my life by turning off the top 3. And my symptoms of anxiety, PTSD, nightmares, blah, 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 multiple personalities would simply go away. And I'd walk out and I'd find other abusers like that. Mm-hmm. Because my programming, because even before we're born, we're taking on ideas of who we are, our place in the world. Are we loved? Are we safe? And for those first 7 years, we're a little sponge. Our brain is working on the theta frequency, which is very slow. It's basically hypnosis. We're taking in information like, little kids learn languages, learn so much so fast. Why? So that if anything happens, they'll have the greatest chance of being able to survive because they've learned as much as possible in those first years. And that's great. That's wonderful. But we can take on ideas that aren't true. What I call unconscious core beliefs. It's the software, the programming that's installed into the computer that is us. And on the screen of our computer, which is our life, that programming will show up. So in my own instance, for example, as I said, I took on these ideas, I don't matter. I'm shit and I deserve to be treated like shit. I deserve to suffer. I deserve to be punished. I make good people do bad things. That was the messages I got when I was little. I was in a big family and you fit in. But when, as a very young child, I told an adult that what this particular priest had been doing to me, the response I got was, what did you do to that good man of God to make him do that? And so I thought, it's my fault. I'm a terrible, evil person. I'm going to hell. I deserve to suffer. I deserve to be punished. So what happened on the screen of my life is that wherever I went, I attracted violent lunatics. And being a good Catholic, I punished myself. My penance for being such a bad person. And so that was the story of my life until I realized many, many decades later that I was actually, do you mean the problem's not out there, that not everybody's a lunatic? Do you mean the problem is, what the? Do you mean I'm the magnet? I'm the one making this? I'm the one who's putting the big neon sign on my head, get your meat here. I'm a victim. Oh. Well, that makes it interesting, doesn't it? Because if I cause this shit fuckery, I can defuck myself by changing the programming. And then I figured out how to do it. Mm-hmm. Not that I'm blaming that little kid for things that happened to her. But we can, like I say to a client, I can predict the rest of your life. And they go, are you a psychic? I say, no. But I can still predict the rest of your life. They go, oh, how can you do that? I said, well, your pattern has been bullying and abuse all your life. They go, oh, yeah. When I was doing the homework, I just saw it was the same thing again and again, bullying and abuse, just different people. I went, yeah. Guess what the rest of your life's going to be? Groundhog Day. More bullying and abuse. How's that working for you? Darling, darling woman, let's change this. Darling man, let's change this. We can actually become the designer and the architect of our life by knowing how to uninstall unhelpful programs and install the positive ones. I matter. I deserve to be treated with care and respect. It's safe for me to have success as much as I want. It's safe for me to be seen and heard. You know what? I got a lot to say and it's really good. It's safe for me to be well. It's safe for me. Do you know what? I deserve a really good life. I'm sick of this shutdown, this survival. You know, Bruce Lipton, in the 70s, he was working at Stanford. He was the first cell biologist to clone stem cells. And he discovered that our cells have only two switches: shutdown survival, all energy going into just sustaining life, or thriving and growing. And he says we are a community of 50 trillion cells. Are we in shutdown survival or thriving and growing? And it's the environment. More than that, it's our perception of the environment that causes shutdown or thriving and growing. So if you're in shutdown, do something about it. Go and see Philippa. Go and see someone and change your life. You don't have to be in so much distress. You just don't have to be.
I think too, like if we go back to what we were talking about right at the start, a lot of people feel like this has to take a long time, or it does take a long time. But even just that switch of narrative and belief that what if it didn't? What if it could be quick? And what if it could be kind of easy as well? Like then when you can start implanting new beliefs even around the possibility of healing, that it could even be fun, then things happen a lot faster. One thing that you talked about, the little girl who had things happen to her and she decided to believe something about herself. That was a pivotal part in my own healing, that I didn't cause certain things to happen to me as a little girl, but I chose to believe it at some point. And that was really powerful, because then I had this understanding that, oh, okay, if I chose to believe that thing that feels really real, like it's literally been governing my life, but I chose it, so therefore I can choose something new. And then it's like possibilities opened up in my brain.
Yep. Yeah, good on you, Philippa.
Mm-hmm.
Things can change.
Things can change. This has been such an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for coming on. Really grateful. I know that everyone who has been listening today, I'm sure that everyone's got so much out of this, and the possibility of healing both trauma in the physical body, like it's so possible for everyone.
Yeah. And what should I be saying no to?
Yeah. And what should I be saying no to?
What should I be saying no to? And do that.
Yeah, I love that. So if anyone wants to find out more about you, the TRTP process, we have practitioners, coaches, therapists listening to our podcast, as well as the general public. How can people find you?
Go to trtptherapy.com, trtptherapy.com. You can also go to YouTube and search TRTP channel. But the website will certainly start you off.
Yeah.
And the need is massive. We've just gone into the States. We are about to be overrun. If you are a coach, therapist, consider joining us.
Mm-hmm.
We will change how mental health is done on the planet.
Yep. This is going to be, I feel like in a
Thanks,
few.
Philippa.
Thank you so much. I feel like in a few years' time, this will be the standard practice for psychologists and everyone else in mental health. The YouTube channel is awesome too, listeners, that you've got so many great webinars that you've done in the past that you can learn so much more about the TRTP process.
Definitely.
So thank you so much, everybody, for listening in, and we'll catch you next week.
Thanks, Philippa. Great to see you.
Thank you so much for listening. We so appreciate you. If you'd like to give us extra smiles, drop us a review and spread the love by sharing this episode.
You can also rate your own state of burnout and the root cause contributors by taking our Ending Body Burnout assessment on our website. And if you're interested in learning about our group or one-on-one Ending Body Burnout programs, shoot us a DM via Instagram or Facebook.
Have the best day ever.